that we have for you from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. 5 Kenyans have been deported from the US. 67 Somali nationals as well have been deported. And Kenyans can be very mean, trust me. So, in that early shot, you saw a sack. So someone is asking, kwani huyu amebeba unga yake, as in kuna vile amejua huku kuna shida? Guys, just be fair. This is not fair. You're watching News Center. Thank you for staying with us. So let's have a conversation about some of the top stories that we are focusing on for you on this show. Just before we took that feed from Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, we were speaking to Jesse Odor, who's a lawyer and a political analyst as well. So Jesse, we said Kalonzo, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka's son may have been nominated to EALA.
Yeah.
He was nominated to EALA. So A, he may have been qualified. B, due process may have been followed.
Yeah.
But C, there's a political season. So everything is being interpreted politically. And we were on Deputy President William Ruto, who said that this demonstrates that Wiper and indeed the opposition has no moral authority to lecture Jubilee on tribalism or nepotism. He does have a point, does he?
To some extent, he has a point, but then it doesn't, two wrongs doesn't make a right. The mere fact that Jubilee has messed up on appointments, only giving 2 ethnic communities, doesn't then qualify that if NASA people decide to nominate their cronies or family members,
Doesn't make it right.
doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right.
But it doesn't look good either.
Of course, it doesn't look good. This is a political season. I don't know who advised NASA. I don't know what they were thinking to do such a blunder, and even ODM to nominate the former Prime Minister's brother. At least that one is now gone.
No, but even if it's gone, just the fact that he was actually nominated.
Actually, you know.
And he declined. That's already a problem.
That is a big problem because first, Oburu is not a young person. This is an 83-year-old guy who has served.
I think by the time I was born, he was already there. Like all my life, he's been there. I
actually joined Parliament in 1994 when we were still toddlers. After his father's death, he succeeded his father's parliamentary seat.
Yes.
Served a member of parliament for over 20 plus years. Then later vied for governor. He lost terribly. Of course, the brother nominated him to be a senator. Vied again there recently for member of parliament, was beaten by over 21,000 votes by Ochanda. And then now you want again to nominate him to EALA. I mean, is there a lack of talent or lack of intellect in this country or in ODM for you to nominate someone else?
You don't have young people.
To be him, yeah. This is an 83-year-old guy. He needs to be playing with his grandchildren, if not great-grandchildren.
And in fact, on the same thing, someone was actually saying they'd rather even have Kalonzo's son than Oburu Oginga. I mean, look at the age. Give this thing to young people. Yeah, we are past the era of putting in very old people. We appreciate old people. We appreciate them and the wisdom they have. But create time and create spaces for young people.
Exactly. You see, the same thing we've been hitting the Jubilee government with for recycling old retirees in the name of Francis Mudaura and others, giving them jobs, and then saying we are going to create million-plus jobs for the youth. And then you're still employing political rejects, or so to speak, to these positions. These are political rejects actually who are being employed. So we need to move from that. It doesn't have to be your brother or your cronies or party loyalists who can do those jobs. Kenya doesn't suffer from intellectual poverty or lack of leadership from the youth.
Okay. Legally speaking, Duale says, leader majority Eden Duale says he will appear before the joint committee of both houses that will vet the nominees to raise the issue of conflict of interest on the son of Kalonzo Musyoka. I was speaking earlier on to my colleague Patrick Mimon, and he was saying probably Duale may have very little to do with this. Like he may not be able to do anything about this, can he?
No, he cannot open his mouth, shout and all that stuff, but legally speaking, there is nothing he can do about it. This is a strictly party affair. The party decides who is going to sit, who is going to represent it in the EALA nomination, not even Parliament, it's the party. Parliament is just to forward that name and actually approve that list. Duale can speak, he can only speak as far as Jubilee Party is concerned. That is the only thing he can. Of course, this is more political. I mean, you hear a game member of Parliament, Jacob Midiwo, who was thrashed by Elisha Odhiambo in the nomination of ODM primaries. And now he wants to bring the nomination issue against Perano. I mean, it's personal for him. to even do that. This is politics at play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, Migori Governor Okoth Obado I understand, is having a homecoming party right now. Our senior reporter, Rashid Ronald, is on the ground for us. Let's cross over and just take a look at what's going on. So apparently he's having his homecoming in Migori.
Yeah, thank you very much, Linda. Of course, I'm at Migori Airstrip, or sometimes they call it Nyanchabo Airstrip. And Okoth Obado, Migori Governor Okoth Obado, just landed here on a chartered plane about 30 minutes ago and addressed a crowd of ODM supporters here who are waiting for him since morning. And of course, telling them that ODM is a party to support. Raila Odinga is a man to support for presidency. And of course, thanking them for having voted for him en masse during the last ODM primaries, which were of course contested, and that's why he's been in Nairobi for the last 2.5 weeks. So today he's come back home to thank the people here. From here, Migori Airstrip, of course, is going all the way to his home in Rapogi. Rapogi, that's where he comes from. And of course, I'm told hundreds of people are waiting for him. Supporters are waiting for him there. There are going to be a bit of celebration there to welcome their man back in Migori County after spending more than almost 3 weeks in Nairobi battling. It's either in court, either at Orange House, Capitol Hill, and just name them, the tribunal, all sort of mechanisms that were put in place to ensure free and fair primaries here and there. And of course, he's coming in here at Nyanchabo. Of course, is very, very symbolic. Remember, this is the border between the Kuria West and Suna East. You remember in Kuria West, we have the Kurian community who actually voted for him en masse to the last man here. And of course, asking them that he will be with them. And of course, asking them to convene a meeting on Tuesday where they are going to agree on various issues, especially how they are going to share the seats here. Remember, the DG position is supposed to be given to the Kurian committee. So he's telling them, organize yourself for a major meeting. We come and sit together and agree who do you want us to take, or rather, do you want me to go on with the man I was with during the last general election, or do you want a change? And of course, that's time will tell, Linda.
Okay. Rashid Ronald, thank you for keeping an eye on what's happening for us in Migori. Okoth Obado, incumbent governor, and of course he won the ODM nominations as well. He's having his homecoming party. It should be interesting to hear what he will have to say. There was a little bit of back and forth with ODM upholding his nomination in the just concluded party primaries. So that is a story that Rashid Ronald will be keeping an eye on for you. Remember, the nomination results for Migori were withheld after Obado's rival, that is Ochilo Ayako, contested the primaries outcome, citing mishandling of the entire exercise, saying it was marred with massive electoral irregularities, prompting the National Executive Board to select a 3-man team that, of course, was sent to Migori to investigate and ascertain those claims. I remember the day of the nominations, Ochilo Ayako bringing in a court order, basically trying to stop the entire process. So all said and done, Okoth Obado is now having his homecoming party in Migori. So that is the story that we're focusing on as well. Rashid Ronald, like I mentioned, is on the ground for us. In studio, I have Jesse Odwor. He's a lawyer and a political analyst as well. Allow me to pick your mind on the back and forth on the nominations and Okoth Obado now going home for a homecoming party. Yeah. What are your thoughts about how the whole process was carried out and the fact that the back and forth, especially in Migori?
I think not just Migori, but across the country. First, most of the political parties, actually all of them, were not actually prepared for these primaries. The preparation was actually shambolic, or so to speak, because you realize that some polling stations, voters start voting at 4 o'clock in the evening. I mean, probably this is a candidate's stronghold. The moment you sabotage the voters starting to vote at 4, it already means this guy is starting from a disadvantaged position. And then some polling station don't even receive polling materials at all. If not, they have to modify and do on exercise books, papers, you know. So the whole preparation was actually wanting. And I pity and I feel for the aspirants. Politics
for-
is a lot of money.
And then you see a lot of them, even in Migori,
Yeah.
Okoth Obado's opponent, Ochilo Ayako, is now
Yeah.
running as an independent.
I wonder why the celebration Obado is having, because
You think you shouldn't have a celebration?
I mean, you haven't won yet. You only won normal nomination primaries. One thing, Linda, this election is going to be a very interesting one. For the first time, we are going to have a third force in the name of independent candidates.
And there are many.
And there are many.
There are very many.
IEBC had received over 5,000 applicants. I'm very sure, if not very close to 4,000 are going to be cleared. We are going to have a very interesting government, both at the national and county level.
Do you foresee a scenario where maybe we'll have a hung parliament?
Yes, we are going to have that.
You think?
Chances are very high. You see, first let's use Obado as a case study. This is somebody who vied on ODM last elections and, of course, according to him, was denied the party certificate. Went and took a little non-PDP party and, of course, won and became a governor. Now, you're going to have several candidates across the country who have already been denied certificates simply because the party owners decide who is going to get that certificate. But the people are going to change that. As far as the primaries are concerned, they're telling the party owners and the party leaders is like, we agree, you go for the big seat, but when it comes to the smaller seats, member of parliament, governor, we are going to have our say.
Okay.
We are going to have so many independent candidates going to be elected.
All right. Jesse, this should be an interesting conversation, the one we're just about to have.
Yeah.
So remember all the questions we're asking about police recruitment and why they need height, teeth, feet, and all that?
Oh, the analysis, yeah.
No, this is a good time to have this conversation. I understand we have George Msamali. Not yet. Okay, we are working to see if we can have George Msamali. Do we have George Msamali on phone? Okay. So right now, let's speak to Security Analyst George Msamali. He's joining us on phone. Bwana Msamali, thank you so much for speaking to us on News Center this morning. And we are having a conversation in studio. I am hoping you're listening in just a little bit on the police recruitment. And we're asking ourselves, why isn't it that why can't we get to a point where when we focus on police recruitment, we look at intellectual prowess of people instead of looking at the height, the feet, and the teeth? Could you explain to us why police recruitment has something to do with the height, teeth, and feet, and all that?
I think that this is something that we took from the colonial era. And I think it has served as well from my own observation.
You think?
Yeah, it has served well, having worked in the police. I mean, police work is more physical than intellectual, because most of the time you'll find that we have police officers patrolling the streets. You'll find police officers going out there and dealing with rioters, mobs. And if you don't have a person who is physically fit, definitely you can't expect this person to deliver. And at the same time, when you look at matters of this, we're talking about the teeth. I mean, this is a person that is always interacting with members of the public. And then his personal appearance, physical appearance, we call it standout, is supposed to be one that can inspire confidence. You look at this policeman and you feel, yeah, this is the right person to be talking to. But if you have somebody who has deformities, then even the respect will not be there. This is something that we've seen practically happening. For example, right now, we changed the recruitment procedures. We say that any person who is even below the initial height of 5.8 can be able to be recruited in the service. And you find that even the respect is no more there. In fact, even members of the public themselves are talking about it and saying, hey, what kind of policeman is this? So I believe if you look at where we've come from up to this point, I still think, right, as much you're looking at the intellectual bit of police work, we still need to have policemen that are physically fit and policemen that can attract the confidence of members of the public when they're interacting with them.
George, you see, that only works for a couple of years. I mean, look around you, and there has been this conversation as well, that when they're being recruited, of course, they're all lean and tall and toned. And then after 3-4 years, you meet someone with a pot belly and they can barely run. So what's the point?
I mean, that is where police management has failed. And let's look for countries like Sri Lanka, look at countries like India. They're still maintaining that physique even after you've been in service. And if you can't be able to maintain your weight, then definitely you will be out of the service. I think what we are witnessing is a police service here that is not keen in delivering its core duties. And this is why you find that even senior police officers don't bother anymore about the qualities of policemen that we have there on the street. So basically we are looking at the entry point, forgetting that even after you've entered the service, you still need to be physically fit for you to be able to perform your duty. So I feel this is a managerial failure by the police managers. We can't say that the qualities that you're looking for during recruitment should not be maintained even when somebody has qualified and is in service.
Okay, George, I am a civilian, so I have probably no idea where this came from, but I slightly disagree. I know you're saying it's more physical than intellectual, but then looking at what's happening around us, especially the war on terror, you have terrorists who are very well versed with what they're doing. These are intellectuals. These are people who know what they're doing. And the reason I'm bringing this is that we have the minimum requirement, I think, to get into the police force is for those who scored a D+, apart from the physical attributes. So then don't you think that we should get to a point as a country where we start recruiting policemen based on their intellectual prowess, and we look for people who have expertise in different sectors? Let's say you can get engineers, you can get doctors, people who can help run the police force.
Linda, that is the minimum requirement. We've talked about it being minimum. So we are saying that, yes, if you get a D+, you can be recruited, but it's not mandatory that we go for that minimum requirement. Somebody like me served in the service, and I went to school, I passed my exams so well, and I opted to join the police service. Even right now, we have graduates that are being recruited in the police service. But not all departments within the police service will require people that are well educated. For example, let me use an example of the GSU. These are people that are supposed to work along the borders, and the work of the GSU is more physical than intellectual.
And
so
that is where...
These people with good papers, right now, if you look at the kind of deployment that's being done in the police, all people with good papers that are recruited are mostly deployed to the CID. When they get to the CID, we deploy them to the anti-terrorism police unit. This is where we need their brains. But there are other areas that will not need these people that are well educated. They will not be able to serve.
George.
Take a person with a degree and take him to Mandera, for example. We have a lot of desertion. People are leaving the service because they feel this is not where I want it to be.
George,
this is why
listen.
now we looked afresh at the entry point, because sometimes back we are saying that you only be recruited in the police if you have a C+ and above. But that did not work.
George, that is where my main concern comes in. Like you mentioned, there are people who may not need like that much qualification like the GSUs. But then that is where you come to a point where human rights abuses are being seen. Why? Because probably these are people who don't understand the basics about human rights. Is there some sort of training in terms of human rights? Because that has been one of the complaints that people have been having, especially on GSU. Like, they treat people as if they're not human beings then.
Linda, I beg to disagree with you.
Let's agree to... Okay.
Yeah, let us agree to disagree.
Okay.
I was a trainer in the GSU. I did that for more than 6 years. And part of the training curriculum that was introduced in the GSU during my time and our time, we used to call it liberal studies. Actually, we are talking to these recruits about maintaining human dignity whenever they are doing their job. We are training them on human rights, the aspects of human rights when you're doing police work. So when there's excessive force being used, other factors that lead to this, not necessarily because somebody did not go to school well and he does not understand these things. So let us be focused on saying that we need to have a police service that will be public friendly, not only the GSU but in all aspects of the service. And I believe we should not take that on the qualification at the entry point. I think most of these problems come in on the type of training they receive and the type of commands they receive while serving out there. For example, you will be told that you are there to serve the government of the day. And when these orders come, we say that we should have a police service that is independent from the executive. But unfortunately, people went to Parliament and changed the law, and now put the Inspector General of the Police still under the command of the executive, meaning at the end of the day, he will only be serving the interests of the government of the day. And this is when wrong orders are given to the police officer. And if you read the Police Act, it says you follow orders without question.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard
this is
that.
where the problem is. So it's a legislative issue. It's not an issue of the qualifications or the specs that we use during recruitment.
Okay, so qualification has little or nothing to do with it. George, there is a little bit of disquiet. There is a concern that the administration police is taking more numbers in this current recruitment. Could you have a reason why the AP is taking in more numbers than the rest of the sectors?
I think this is an issue that needs to be handled by the commanders because from what I've been told is that during the recruitment, all these centers, the 267 centers, the administration police was recruiting 30. I mean, it was divided along the two police services, where we have the administration police recruiting 30 per center, and the general duty police recruiting 30 from each of these centers. But you'll find that we have several formations within the Kenya Police, as opposed to the AP where we have just one service. And you will find that these 30 recruits that were being recruited in the Kenya Police were divided along the line, where the DCI was also allowed to do direct recruitment this time, as opposed from the previous practice, where they used to receive officers from the Kenya Police. So you'll find that we need more officers serving in the Kenya Police than the AP. And I think this is something that was supposed to be looked into by the National Police Service Commission and then allocated this lot as per the need. But I think that was not done.
Yes.
Yes.
So finally, allow me to put you on the spot a little bit. So there was a police pass-out parade recently, and President Uhuru Kenyatta said Kenya had surpassed the UN recommended ratio of policemen and civilians, and now we are seeing the recruitment of more police officers. And there is a little bit of concern on the number of police officers currently in the country. Is there a point where you can say we have too many policemen, probably more than we need?
Linda, I'm not the police spokesperson. But
I knew that was coming.
But actually, it's true that we've surpassed the UN ratio of 1 to 450. From my own mathematics, right now we are doing 1 to 380, which is a good thing because initially we did not have enough boots on the ground, and it was becoming difficult for us to be able to deal with crime in the country. But from my own perspective, I don't think this current recruitment was necessary. Because if you look at the quality of officers that we are producing from this mass production, you find that the quality is wanting. So I believe that this time round, the funds that were being used for this recruitment and the training should have been channeled elsewhere. For example, we should have looked at the welfare of the police officers, which is something we've not done. We don't have adequate housing. And even right now, as I speak to you, I'm being told that the recruits are being asked to carry mattresses to the training colleges, which was something that was not there before. Everything was being provided by the government. The APs are being to report to APTC Training College with their own boots. You buy your own boots from a supermarket. I mean, it means we still don't have enough equipment in the police service. So I don't think that we needed this recruitment at this point because already we've surpassed the UN ratio. Not unless we're just talking about creating employment for people.
Okay.
Yeah, these funds should have been channeled elsewhere. They should be used to improve housing. They should have been used to buy uniforms, keep the police officers, and reduce the number of officers that we are recruiting this time around because they're not going to serve any purpose.
All right. George Msamali, security analyst. George, such a pleasure speaking to you as always. Thank you so much for speaking to us and for helping me to understand why we need height and teeth and feet and all those things. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So in studio, I have Jesse Oduor, a political analyst and a lawyer as well. What are your thoughts about the numbers, the ratio between the police and civilians?
Of course, we have surpassed the UN recommendation, right? A ratio of 1 to 450. But then the problem comes with how we use our police force. Most of them, actually, the largest number guard our VIPs. they're not there doing what the police officers are
What they're
supposed
supposed
to be doing.
to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's actually a problem.
Listen, that would be a good place to let you go and have lunch.
Yeah.
I've kept you here for what, 2 hours?
2 hours, yeah.
Just your door, lawyer, political analyst. Thank you so much for speaking to us and for being part of News Center.
Thank you, Linda. Have a nice
All right,
weekend.
you too. All right, people, you're watching News Center. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're looking at the top stories for you at this moment. We're focusing on that storm over the nomination of Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka-san to EALA, police recruitment, and several other things. But for now, allow me to take a breather. I'll be back.